Alright, so today we're going to talk about the end of World War II, or more specifically, the near end of World War II. So after VE Day, which stands for Victory in Europe Day, so Hitler's dead, Mussolini's dead, Germany and Italy are defeated, which means World War II is over in the European front. You've still got the Pacific front, also known as, the Japanese, because they haven't surrendered. And it'll take actually like a month or two maybe for them to surrender. So obviously, you're gonna have to get back to fighting. So the Americans, they do bombing and they attack was in a strategy called island hopping. Right, these small but very strategic islands. They'll capture them, use them as like bases to continue attacking inwards. Because the Japanese Empire had a lot of islands, like Indonesian islands, nearby Japanese, Taiwan, Chinese islands, you name it. All right, they have a lot of islands. So two islands specifically are the main goal of the Americans and the Japanese. The Japanese know they can get these islands, or else Japan is done for. And the Americans know if we get these islands, we can defeat Japan. And those are Iwo Jima and another island which I will not name because I do not know the name of. So Iwo Jima was the longer fight. It lasted for a couple of days, presumably, because the Japanese, they didn't want to surrender. All right, they were like, we're gonna die fighting for our emperor rather than defeat. All right, so they saw victory with honor better than defeat with humiliation. So it took forever for the Americans to, fight off the Japanese. And, the Japanese they were actually very scared of the Americans after some time because every ship they destroy, more come. Every airplane they shoot down, even more planes come the next day. And the more soldiers you kill, the more soldiers they deploy, alright? A couple of Japanese people actually describe it as fighting a tide. You can fight the tide, but it'll just keep coming back until you're tired of it. So obviously Iwo Jima is lost. However, an invasion to mainland Japan was found out to be too risky by American generals because, invading into Japan, they've already fought us for days on one island. What do you think they'll do in their mainland? All right, people will get desperate. They'll fight. All right, because they have a lot more morale fighting for the emperor, dying with honor and some sort. So they estimate the death of Americans if they try to invade it about 1 million deaths, which is way too much. So let's pull up their secret project, the Manhattan Project, made by Manhattan because he was the guy who invented the atomic bomb. All right, so for the whole span of the war, FDR, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was the president, but he died shortly after VE Day. So Harry Truman replaced him. So the general was like, all right, okay. So here's Japan. We cannot invade it. All right. We need you to decide. Should we drop the Manhattan Project on Japan? And when Harry Truman, he was included in some meetings that specified what the Manhattan Project was. He was like, okay, so what's the Manhattan Project? So the generals had to literally brief him for a moment. And they're like, so decide, yes or no, should you drop these bombs on Japan? And in the end, Harry Truman was like, okay, you know what? If it's for the greater good for the American public, let's drop the bombs. So on August 6th of 1945, they drop a bomb on Hiroshima, and then 3 days later, they drop another bomb on Nagasaki. And it took 6 days for the instrument of defeat to be written and translated and given to the Americans. Because the Japanese embassy in America had to translate it and give it to the government. So that's officially the end. However, this will lead to a new problem. The USSR and America, you obviously know, they have very little things in common. The USSR, communist dictatorship, more of like a totalitarian regime. USA, democratic. I mean, technically there were still a lot of government scandals, just like in the USSR, but they were very, very different. And during the war, because Hitler and Mussolini were invading each other, so the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So even though you didn't like the USSR, you have to ally with them because you and them have the same goal of defeating Hitler and Mussolini in Europe. But after Hitler's dead, Mussolini's dead, the Japanese have surrendered. What do? All right, they go back to disliking each other. So obviously, no war happened. No wars happened. All right. That's why it's called the Cold War. You know, it's verbal. It's like you see in school when people like don't like each other and they start like threatening each other. Like, you want to come? You want to jump me first? Oh, and you want to see what I'll do to you if you jump? So that's basically how it works. All right. They just verbally insult each other. So that also leads to the creation of NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is a military league of European and North American nations that are like, okay, you know what, we don't like communism, so we're gonna make this so that way you don't spread more communism. And in response, the Warsaw Pact, which consisted of communist Poland, Latvia, Belarus, Estonia, communist Ukraine, and basically a bunch of communist nations surrounding Russia's bloc. All right, and also that also leads to spies. All right, so there's the CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, and the KGB, the Russians' response. All right, they were like fighting back and forth, but not really necessarily like touching, fisting hands, shooting each other. Nope, more like a Cold War. Like they'll just diplomatically talk, try and negotiate with each other, and also it lasts for 46 years. So yeah, different presidents, different times, they'll try and negotiate, and it'll slowly change, all right? Because different presidents, different personalities, different sort of behaviors. All right, so yeah, that's basically what happens near the end of World War II, during the end of World War II, and after the end. Thank you for watching this video. Have a nice day.